August 12, 1979, Silverstone, England. Millions watching live on BBC as two motorcycles scream down the straight at 130 miles per hour, inches apart. The rider in front, Barry Sheene, looks over his shoulder at the defending world champion, Kenny Roberts. On live national television, he flips him off. A full two-fingered salute at 130 miles per hour. But that moment was not arrogance. It was the climax of the greatest rivalry motorcycle racing has ever seen. Two men who hated each other on track, respected each other off it, and pushed each other beyond what anyone thought was possible on two wheels. To understand that moment, we need to go back to the streets of London, where it all started. Barry Stephen Frank Sheene was born on September 11, 1950 in Holborn, London. His dad, Frank, was a former motorcycle racer and worked as an engineer at the Royal College of Surgeons. So young Barry grew up surrounded by precision tools and engine parts. Frank built him a homemade mini bike, and the kid was riding at 5 years old. School did not stand a chance. Barry had zero interest in classrooms and maximum interest in anything with two wheels and an engine. He would skip school to watch practice sessions at Brands Hatch, the famous circuit just south of London. He was such a frequent troublemaker around Trafalgar Square that he was cast to play a hooligan in a production of Puccini's opera Tosca. That is not a joke. He was so convincingly chaotic that an opera company recruited him. But Barry was not just a wild child on a fast bike. He was genuinely brilliant with engines. He spent hours learning two-stroke tuning in his father's workshop, and that mechanical knowledge would later take him to the Suzuki factory in Japan, where he personally helped develop the bikes that would make him world champion. His first race came at Brands Hatch in 1968. He was 17. The engine seized in his debut and he crashed. He got back on a different bike minutes later and finished third. The following weekend, he won both his races, and the weekend after that, he won again. By 1971, riding on a shoestring budget, Barry finished second in the 125 cubic centimeter World Championship to the legendary Angel Nieto. That same year, he also won a Grand Prix in the 50 cubic centimeter class on a borrowed cradler, making him the only rider in history to win Grand Prix in both the 50 cubic centimeter and 500 cubic centimeter categories. He was 20 years old and already doing things nobody else had done. But none of that prepared the world for what happened at Daytona in March of 1975. Barry was testing tires at Daytona International Speedway when his rear Dunlop tire came apart at 175 miles per hour on the banked circuit. His Suzuki locked up instantly and launched him down the asphalt. A BBC documentary crew happened to be filming at the time, and they captured the whole thing. The injuries were brutal: broken left femur, broken right arm, broken collarbone, shattered ribs, and compression fractures in his vertebrae. The road rash was so severe that Barry later said he had lost enough skin to cover a sofa. He remembered rolling across the tarmac and feeling his skin tear away. When he finally stopped, he looked down and saw his left leg bent at a right angle underneath his other leg. Surgeons at Halifax Hospital in Florida inserted an 18-inch steel pin into his left femur. When the team manager came to visit and asked how he was, Barry looked up from his hospital bed, ran through the entire list of broken bones, and delivered the line that made all of Britain fall in love with him. Apart from that, I am fine. The first thing he asked for after that was a cigarette. The man had just been scraped off the asphalt at 175 miles per hour, and he wanted a smoke. Now, any normal person would have retired. Barry Sheene got back on a motorcycle 7 weeks later. Not just any race. The Dutch Tourist Trophy at Assen, one of the biggest events on the calendar. He put his Suzuki on pole position, made a last corner pass around the outside of Giacomo Agostini, arguably the greatest rider who ever lived at that point, and won the race. 7 weeks after doctors were debating whether he would ever walk properly again. That Daytona crash did something else too. The road rash on Barry's back inspired him to build the first ever motorcycle back protector. He made a crude prototype from old helmet visors, arranged so they could flex one way but not the other, and gave the concept to Italian company Dainese. They turned it into a production product that became standard equipment in racing worldwide. Every rider who straps on a back protector today is wearing Barry Sheene's idea, whether they know his name or not. After Daytona, Barry did not just return to racing, he became a phenomenon. He won the 500 cubic centimeter World Championship in 1976, then defended it in 1977 with 6 Grand Prix victories. At 27 years old, he was driving Rolls-Royces. In fact, he owned 3 of them, and his license plate read 4BSR, because he had not accumulated 4 yet. He got his hair cut exclusively by Vidal Sassoon. He signed endorsement deals with Brute Aftershave alongside boxing legend Henry Cooper, becoming the first motorcycle racer to attract major commercial sponsorship from outside the sport. In 1975 alone, he appeared on 8 different British television talk shows. 8. For a motorcycle racer in the 1970s, that was completely unheard of. His This Is Your Life episode in January 1978 drew over 19 million viewers. George Harrison showed up and called Barry a Midland banker in Cockney rhyming slang. The host, Eamon Andrews, completely missed the joke. Barry was friends with George Harrison, hung out with Ringo Starr, and partied so hard with Formula One champion James Hunt that both of them made rock stars look responsible by comparison. Barry once described their lifestyle pretty simply. He smoked 50 unfiltered Gitans a day, drank whatever he wanted, and went to bed at 3 in the morning. Those were, in his words, ridiculous times, but everything was about to change. In 1978, an American from Modesto, California showed up in Europe and declared war. Kenny Roberts wasn't just another fast rider, he was a completely different species of motorcycle racer. European riders like Sheene were masters of smooth lines, late braking, and elegant precision. Roberts came from American dirt track racing, where you survive by making the rear tire slide sideways through every corner at terrifying speed. The Italians took one look at his style and called him the Martian. And the rivalry? Barry Sheene started it himself. Before Roberts arrived in Europe full-time, Sheene wrote a column in Motorcycle News dismissing the American as no threat, saying he did not know European circuits well enough to compete. Roberts read that column, and it lit a fire that would burn for years. Roberts later recalled that Sheene had dismissed him as not being a threat, and that moment was when he committed fully to competing in Europe. In his rookie season, Roberts won 4 Grands Prix and took the 500 cubic centimeter world title from Sheene. The defending champion's relationship with his Suzuki team fractured at the worst possible moment. At the Finnish Grand Prix, Sheene told his mechanics he could hear a failing crankshaft bearing. They told him he was imagining things. The engine broke during the race. Roberts won the championship by 10 points. If that bearing had been replaced, would Sheene have won a 3rd title? We'll never know. If you're enjoying this deep dive into one of the wildest careers in motorsport history, hit subscribe. I cover stories like this every week. Now about that Silverstone race. What happened on August 12, 1979 at Silverstone wasn't just a motorcycle race. It was a war on 2 wheels, broadcast live to millions of British viewers, and it remains one of the greatest sporting events ever held on British soil. Roberts had basically already clinched his 2nd title. Sheene had no realistic shot at the championship. His only goal was to win in front of his home crowd, the fans who worshipped him. Qualifying was a disaster. Sheene couldn't get his Suzuki hooked up through the fast corners. He qualified 5th, nearly 2 seconds slower than Roberts. Before the race even started, drama struck. Roberts pulled a wheelie on the warm-up lap, held it too long, and blocked the oil pressure to his gearbox. An oil seal popped out. His mechanics, including the legendary Giacomo Agostini with a rag in his hand, frantically replaced the seal and poured fresh oil into the gearbox with minutes to spare. Roberts started with oil-soaked gloves. From the drop of the flag, Roberts tried to break away. He pushed flat out for 3 laps. But Barry Sheene stuck to his exhaust pipe like he was glued there. Roberts couldn't shake him. And then the chess match began. For 28 laps, these two swapped positions over and over. Roberts would take the lead. Sheene would dive underneath at the next corner. Roberts would come back on the straight. Sheene would outbrake him into Woodcote. Halfway through the race, when Sheene took the lead, he did something nobody expected. He deliberately slowed down, letting the riders behind close in on both of them. Roberts was furious. He started waving his arm, trying to tell Sheene to speed up before they both got caught. And that's when Barry Sheene looked over his shoulder at the world champion and gave him the V sign on live television at 130 miles per hour with 50 million people watching. Roberts actually laughed. He later said that when Barry gave him the finger, it made him chuckle because the TV cameras hadn't caught Roberts waving at Sheene moments earlier, telling him to pick up the pace before the pack caught them. The final lap was pure chaos. On the penultimate lap, a backmarker named George Fogarty, father of future 4-time World Superbike champion Carl Fogarty, got in Sheene's way at Woodcote. Roberts slipped through clean on the inside. Sheene tried the outside and lost about 20 meters. With 1 lap remaining, Sheene produced one of the greatest laps of his career, attacking every corner like his life depended on it, clawing back those 20 meters inch by inch. Into Woodcote for the final time, they were side by side at 130 miles per hour. Roberts drifted to the inside, blocking the line. Sheene had the momentum to pass on the outside, but there simply wasn't enough racetrack left. Roberts won by 0.03 of a second, roughly 1 meter at race speed. Roberts himself said it best. "There was no loser that day," he said. "When you come that close, there are no losers." And privately, the respect between them ran deeper than either would publicly admit. Roberts once said that there was never anyone he trusted more on the track than Barry Sheene. But the rivalry had already cost Sheene more than just a race. His ego destroyed his contract negotiations with Suzuki, and he walked away without a backup plan. When he signed with Yamaha, Roberts got the factory equipment, while Sheene got last year's models. His teammate Steve Parrish later said that if Barry had stayed with Suzuki, he believed Sheene would have won at least 2 more championships. Then came July 28, 1982, the crash that should have ended his career for good. During practice for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, Barry was riding his factory Yamaha through Abbey Corner at over 160 miles per hour when he crested a blind rise. A crashed motorcycle from French rider Patrick Egoa was lying dead center in the racing line. Barry had no time to react. He hit the wreckage head-on and was launched over the handlebars. A journalist who arrived at the scene said it looked like an aircraft had crashed. Both legs were shattered. His left hand was broken. The surgeon at Northampton General Hospital, Nigel Cobb, operated for 6 hours and later compared the procedure to screwing eggshells back together. 4 metal plates, 27 screws. For a period, doctors considered amputating both legs entirely. The X-ray of Barry Sheene's legs became one of motorsport's most famous images, his bones held together like a construction kit. Barry being Barry, he carried that X-ray in his briefcase for the rest of his life and would pull it out at airport security whenever the metal detectors went off. 7 months later, he was racing again. He tested at Donington Park in February 1983 and hit 150 miles per hour. His only complaint? The cold weather hurt his legs. Roberts, his great rival, also crashed during that 1982 Silverstone weekend. Years later, when Roberts was informed of Sheene's eventual death, he said something that captured their entire relationship. He said he would not be Kenny Roberts without Barry Sheene, that he used to only get out of bed in the morning to beat Barry. Barry retired from Grand Prix racing at the end of 1984 and moved to Surfer's Paradise on Australia's Gold Coast with his wife Stephanie in 1987. The warm weather eased the constant pain from the metal hardware in his ruined legs. George Harrison, who had property nearby, helped convince him to make the move. In Australia, Barry reinvented himself as a television commentator and mentored a new generation of riders. Among them was a young Queenslander named Mick Doohan. Sheene talked to the Japanese factories about Doohan, helped get him noticed, and Doohan went on to win 5 consecutive 500 cubic centimeter world championships. In July 2002, Barry was diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus and stomach. He was 51. A lifetime of smoking, he had smoked since he was 9 years old, had caught up with him. He was the man who drilled a hole in his crash helmet so he could smoke a cigarette on the starting grid. And now it was killing him. Barry refused chemotherapy. He said he had seen friends after chemotherapy, and they looked like dead people who could still talk. He chose alternative treatments instead, a juice diet and holistic medicine. 2 months after his diagnosis, Barry flew from Australia to England to race at the Goodwood Revival. On a 500 cubic centimeter Manx Norton, wearing the number 7, he lined up against former world champion Wayne Gardner. Before the race, he joked about his weight loss from the cancer, saying he was so light now the bike had to fly. On the final lap, Barry Sheene made his move in the chicane. He passed Gardner and won by less than the length of a motorcycle. It was his 3rd consecutive Goodwood victory, achieved while he was dying of cancer. On March 10, 2003, Barry Sheene died in a Gold Coast hospital. He was 52. Stephanie, the woman he had met while on crutches after Daytona 28 years earlier, was at his side. Days later, at pre-season testing in Catalunya, a young Italian rider named Valentino Rossi showed up wearing a rainbow helmet with the number 7 painted on both sides. At the Australian Grand Prix that October, Rossi won the race and did a victory lap draped in a homemade flag with the number 7 painted on a hotel bedsheet that morning. He later called Barry a magic person, more than just a world champion. Kenny Roberts told the news over breakfast at Daytona, delivered the tribute that defines their rivalry forever. He said that without Barry Sheene, his world championships would not have meant as much, and that when Barry died, he lost his rival. Barry Sheene won 23 Grand Prix races and 2 world championships. He invented the back protector. He transformed motorcycle racing from a niche sport into mainstream entertainment. And nearly 50 years later, he remains Britain's last premier class motorcycle champion. No British rider has matched him since 1977. Was that his greatest achievement or his greatest curse on British racing? Maybe both. If you want to see more stories about legends who refuse to play by anyone else's rules, that video is on screen now.